Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Welcome to Your Voice Matters with Jen Chambers. Today's episode celebrates an extraordinary woman who shaped history. Today, we're soaring into the remarkable story of Hazel Ying Lee, a fearless aviator who shattered barriers in the skies during World War II. I wrote about Hazel as one of the women that I profiled in my nonfiction book, Remarkable Oregon Women, Revolutionaries and Visionaries. Whenever I've spoken about Hazel, at conferences, bookstores, festivals, or schools, her story has resonated with people. So I thought I'd share her story with you as a way to peek into my day job. She's also my daughter's favorite of all of those stories. As the first Chinese American woman to fly for the U.S. military, Hazel's courage, her determination, and her unshakable spirit cemented her place in history. Plus, she just has a fascinating story. Her early life and passion for flight. Hazel Ying Lee was born in Portland, Oregon in 1912 to Chinese immigrant parents from Taishan, China, who owned a restaurant and store in Portland, Oregon. Growing up at a time when opportunities for women, especially women of color, were limited, Hazel didn't let societal norms ground her ambitions. Hazel was a diligent worker, she studied hard, and she was a very good student. She was active, she was athletic, she loved to play cards, and she was a very good cook. Her free time was spent working with her parents and being on the swimming team. She was also very close with her family. Upon her graduation in 1929, she got a job, one of very few available to Chinese women, as an elevator operator at the Lieb's department store in Portland. After she took her first ride in an airplane in 1932 with a friend, she was hooked on that. With the help of a community drive and a scholarship, she was able to take flying lessons at the Chinese Flying Club of Portland. And in 1932, she became one of the first Chinese American women to earn a pilot's license. Her mentor was the famous aviator Al Greenwood. But breaking into aviation as an Asian woman in the 1930s was no small feat. Discrimination was rampant. Her mother didn't see the point in her flying. Her sister Frances said, quote, "It was the thought of doing something she loved. She enjoyed the danger and doing something that was new to Chinese girls," unquote. When I say that the racism in Oregon was rampant, it's an understatement. Oregon was shamefully set up completely as a racist state. Though the foundation of the railroads and the mining and logging camps benefited greatly from Chinese American labor, Oregon's constitution was exclusionary, and it had laws against anyone who wasn't white. The Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882 made it illegal for Chinese laborers to immigrate to Oregon, although they still did. More anti-Chinese laws were enacted in 1887 that imposed multiple restrictions, including a prohibition from owning property. So opportunities were scarce, but Hazel was undeterred. During flying school, she met the man who would become her future husband, a fellow flyer named Clifford Louis Yim Quinn, flying for China. In 1933, when Manchuria was under attack by Japan, Hazel set her sights on helping her ancestral homeland. She traveled to China with a group of other Chinese American pilots, and she was hoping to serve as a military pilot there. However, the Republic of China Air Force didn't allow women to fly in combat, and they relegated her to other war efforts. So, though she was unable to fly in the air, she contributed to China's defense in a desk job, and later she flew for a commercial airline. She did have some close calls. In one of her last flights there, she escaped in the belly of a plane to Hong Kong and escaped back to New York City, where she became a materials buyer. World War II and the WASP program. When World War II broke out and the United States joined in, Hazel saw another chance to use her skills. In 1943, she joined the Women Airforce Service Pilots program, or the WASPs, a civilian program where female pilots ferried military aircraft across the country to free up male pilots for combat missions. As one of the first Chinese American women in the program, she faced discrimination there too, but her skill and humor won over her fellow pilots. Flying everything from pursuit planes to bombers, Hazel's fearlessness stood out. During her training, it was reported that she actually fell from her seat during a loop-de-loop in a training mission, but she employed her parachute and walked back to the base from the field that she landed in, dragging the parachute in her wake. She relished the challenge of piloting the high-speed aircraft, and her fellow WASP members admired her adventurous spirit. She was well-liked, and she often cooked for her fellow WASPs on their time off. They would pool their money, and Hazel would cook traditional Chinese cuisine in order to teach her fellow WASPs about her family's culture. Her friends recalled her being an extremely good cook. But the work they did was dangerous. These women faced the same risks as military pilots did, but they didn't have military status or military benefits. They were classified as civilians. These women were issued no death benefits and had to pass the hat amongst themselves in order to get fellow females home when they died in the line of service. They also had to buy their own uniforms. Tragic end and lasting impact. Hazel was assigned to the 3rd Ferrying Group in a base in Romulus, Michigan, where she helped ferry aircraft bound for war to their embarkation points. It was, as she described in a letter to her sister, quote, a 7-day work week with little time off, unquote, but she loved it. She said she would, quote unquote, fly anything, and she did. Her friends at this time remembered her sense of mischief and her sense of humor. Once she had to crash land in the middle of a wheat field in Kansas on a ferrying mission. The farmer there was so convinced that she was a Japanese pilot that he chased her off the field with a pitchfork until she could convince him that she was an American pilot. Hazel was also among the 134 women who flew the Pursuit and the faster high-powered flyers like the P-63 King Cobra, the P-51 Mustang, and the P-39 Era Cobra. Her favorite to fly was the Mustang. Tragically, Hazel's promising career was cut short on November 23, 1944. During a routine ferrying mission, her plane collided with another aircraft upon landing in Great Falls, Montana. She was pulled out of the wreck with her flight jacket still smoking. She died from her injuries 2 days later, and she became the last WASP pilot to die in service during the war. Sadly, her brother Victor, who had been fighting in France with the U.S. Tank Corps, died in France only 3 days later. She and her brother were flown back together and buried side by side in the Riverview Cemetery in Portland, Oregon. Now, despite her sacrifice, Hazel and her fellow WASPs weren't recognized as military veterans until decades later. In 1977, they were granted veteran status, and in 2004, Hazel was recognized by the Oregon Aviation Hall of Honor. In 2010, the WASPs received the Congressional Gold Medal for their service. Though Hazel didn't live to see this honor, her legacy as a pioneering aviator and trailblazer continues to inspire generations. Hazel Ying's story is one of resilience, one of bravery, and an unbreakable spirit. She soared past those barriers and proved that the sky was never the limit for her. It's corny but true. Her legacy reminds me that the courage in face of adversity can lead to those extraordinary achievements. She was one of those women, like I said, whose story I was so surprised that I wasn't taught. That's part of why I write about all of these extraordinary people, because their stories are too important to leave silent. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Your Story Matters with Jen Chambers. If Hazel's story moved you, please share this episode and let others know about her remarkable contributions. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep reaching for your new heights.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Sometimes we need to lift the voices of those who've overcome and expose the ones that made the choices